I firmly believe that game design is mostly about pros and cons. It's about sacrifices and compromises. It's not as simple as this is good design and this is bad design. And to make a good game, you just take everything that is in the good design box and you put it in the game. It's much more complicated than that, in my opinion, because pretty much everything has the potential to fundamentally alter the player's experience. Let's take Sonic as an example. The idea is simple. Go fast. That's not only the objective, that's where the fun of the game is, right? Well, something that is rather common in Sonic games, and something that a lot of people take issue with, is the enemy placement. If you've played Sonic, this has happened to you. You're going super fast, you're having fun, and then there's a badnik right in front of you, or a spring in front of you that sends you in the opposite direction, possibly down a hole. Something that results either in you getting hit or going off route, and you're left wondering, how are you supposed to react to that? For some people, that'll be frustrating to the point that they'll stop playing the game right there and then, arguing that this is just unfair and antithetical to what the game is supposed to be. Others might argue, well, you want to go fast, you have to earn it. You need to learn the layout of the level, the enemy placement, how to control your momentum, etc. The same design elements that can cause frustration and make people quit can also grant a feeling of reward and make other people continue to play the game and even gain a new appreciation for it. Two things can be true, and this is what makes this so complicated. With this division of opinions, you're going to have a majority and a minority, but not really right or wrong. Both arguments are valid, and game developers take this into consideration when balancing the game in an attempt to minimize frustration whilst being careful not to completely eliminate the rewarding feeling you get from overcoming a seemingly unfair challenge. It's not an exact science. Sometimes good design and bad design is simply a matter of perspective and preference. Another game that comes to mind as a good example to use for this discussion, and the game I'd like to focus on in this video, is Absolum, a beat-em-up roguelite released in October, made by the same developers behind Streets of Rage 4. It was even nominated for Indie Game of the Year, standing alongside highly anticipated titles such as Silksong and Hades 2. That is quite impressive, especially when you consider this is a new IP within a niche genre. I do not wish to discredit the game with this critique, and I want to make it clear that I like the game, but I do think it's worth highlighting some of the issues currently present in it, namely the balancing. Power is often viewed as something unequivocally positive in single-player and co-op games. Perhaps you've already seen people say stuff like, why balance the game just to make it fun? There's no PvP, there's no competitive elements, just let people have fun. Well, making a game fun to play involves balancing it. What's interesting about this mindset is that it shows how many players have come to associate balance exclusively with nerfs, with taking power away, and by extension, taking the fun away. I used to think this too, but I have since changed my mind on that. Now, when I look at Absolum, I think that the player is too powerful. And already this might be viewed as somewhat of a controversial statement. After all, we enjoy feeling powerful in video games, and people don't want that to be taken away. I understand that, truly. I also understand that some games emphasize that power fantasy more than others. However, with this video, I would like to present a few arguments to highlight that even when the point of the game is to become OP, there are still consequences. In Absolum, you can become so powerful so easily that this conflicts with the game's mechanics. It's a game with a fantastic combat system. Defensively, there are multiple ways you can clash, deflect, and dodge enemy attacks. Offensively, there's a surprising amount of tech and different ways you can combo enemies. The enemy design is quite impressive, with some of the more advanced enemies being able to block, deflect, perform several different attacks. They have a fairly long list of moves. They have many ways of catching you off guard without being frustrating to fight. But this system, as good as it is, doesn't get to shine because it conflicts with the roguelite elements. It is at odds with the roguelite elements. The depth is certainly present, but the issue is how relevant that depth actually is. You don't really have to learn any of the deeper combat mechanics if you have a powerful enough build. The build just does everything for you. I make no exaggeration when I say that if you've got the right rituals, this game's version of perks or boons, you can just spam moves. You can just use 2 buttons to trivialize some of the tougher sections of the game. And making a powerful build doesn't really take that much effort. And it's not a rare occurrence. It's not like you need to put together 5 different pieces that are difficult to get in order to make a strong build. It takes like 2, sometimes just 1 ritual or inspiration to become OP and totally change your playstyle. And everything added on top of that is just reinforcing that power even further. Now, on the one hand, some people might find that very appealing. Players across a wide range of skill levels can get a powerful build with pretty much anything they choose, and you don't need to study the game too much in order to succeed. It's less commitment, and it's easier to fit this game into a busy schedule. On the other hand, if everything is powerful, does anything feel special? It's difficult not being overpowered in this game. Currently, there's no option to leave rituals behind. You have to pick something in order to proceed to the next screen. And you're very limited in terms of difficulty options. In fact, in co-op, which I'll get into later, you can't change the difficulty. You can only play on normal, essentially. But perhaps the biggest problem is that the power that you acquire through rituals gradually makes your kit and your game knowledge less relevant. As you become more powerful over the course of the run, clashing, deflecting, dodging, knowing optimal combos, knowing enemy patterns, map layouts, spawn points, all of that loses its significance, which is a bit strange. You're rewarded for skillful play mostly in the early game, but as you gain more power, you have less chances to show off your skill. It feels like, as a reward for learning the game's intricacies and getting better at the game, you're given powers that render what you've learned unimportant. Not only are the rituals very powerful, some of them can actually mess up the combos and setups. So, at times, you can't even show off, even if you wanted to. Again, this much power can be fun, and I don't have anything against those who find this fun. It is fun for a lot of people. There is enjoyment to be had here. I just want to show a different perspective, a different side to this that I feel like isn't often talked about. Not everyone is going to see this much power as a good thing, even if it does improve their chances of winning the game. Even when something is fun, it can still have its own set of issues, and in the case of Absolum, this power that it gives to its players come at a cost, because the player doesn't have to engage. At times, the player can't engage with the combat mechanics of the game. Now, in single player, you can change the difficulty through the assist options and self-imposed challenges, which does help. In co-op, it's not as straightforward. The rituals can essentially erase character weaknesses, and they blur the lines that separate one character from the other. Characters feel more unique when they are weaker. Galandra, the well-rounded fighter, Carl, who's good at grappling and good at ranged combat, Cider, the combo-heavy speed character, Brome, the mage specializing in burst damage. Each character's personality and role is more pronounced early in the game. But by the time you reach the final areas, it's like any of the characters can do everything. And they aren't as distinct from one another. In co-op, when one player has the god build, the other player becomes completely irrelevant. In fact, it might be better if the second player doesn't interfere at all, because they might just overpressure the enemies or trigger their defensive move and they'll deflect or clash. Overpressure is a mechanic put in place to prevent infinites. If you keep doing the same moves over and over again, overpressure kicks in and the enemy becomes unhittable. This happens a lot in co-op, especially when you don't have a fully upgraded character. So if one player has high damage and the other doesn't, that player can't even support their teammate properly because they'll just be reducing the other player's DPS. One player gets to be the main protagonist. They can do anything, being able to hit anything from anywhere on screen thanks to auto-targeting moves, insane damage numbers, mana refill with the press of a button, crowd control, AoE, everything you can think of. And the other player is just left without a role. They're just watching. Positioning stops mattering. You don't need that classic, I'll take the left side, you take the right side, or I'll deal with the enemies on the top lane, you get the ones on the bottom lane. You watch my back, I watch yours. All of that is gone when with just one move I can hit everything on screen. I don't need to depend on my teammate for anything. The problem remains in a different form if both players are overpowered. Though there is some enjoyment to be had in seeing that you two are destroying everything, there's still the issue of simply not needing a co-op partner. One player doesn't feel excluded anymore, sure, that much is solved, but now the co-op is basically irrelevant. They're both capable of dealing with everything on their own. There's no need to coordinate any play, there's no need for teamwork. No need to rely on your teammate. This makes Absolum a game that I personally find more fun when I'm not trying to win. If we go back to older beat-em-ups, playing them with a focus to win, trying to get a 1cc or a no death, that typically enhances the game. We need more refined strategies, better execution, better coordination, deep knowledge of the mechanics. In Absolum, just get a stronger build, and the build will pretty much do everything for you. This means that playing Absolum with the intent to win, making optimal choices, re-rolling for better rituals, making the optimal plays when given the opportunity, that makes the game less fun for me personally. The most fun I've had in co-op was when we were picking just whatever was being given to us. No re-rolling, just trying to adapt on the spot and making wacky builds. We were essentially putting ourselves at a disadvantage so we could experience the combat mechanics without the OP stuff interfering with it. And we needed teamwork to get through the game. If we are both OP, I feel like we're not really playing the game together. We're playing the same game at the same time, yes, but we're not playing together. You're doing your thing over there, and I'm doing my thing over here. There's no real need to pay attention to what the other is doing. So, what's the solution here? I actually think the devs might have already figured something out. We know that they are working on an update for the game, and among the features teased, we've seen custom runs, which they are calling Mystic Ordeals. And according to a post on Reddit made today by the community manager for .emu, I think, we're getting more details next week. One thing that I would like to see is the ability to maybe disable certain rituals so we can be less powerful and co-op can have more teamwork and single player can have more skillful gameplay. Right now we have to pick rituals, we have to pick trinkets, and while some of them do create more expressive gameplay, many of them frankly make the game a bit boring, at least for me, because it's just too much power. I think that if they give players the option to customize their experience instead of nerfing the playstyle that so many people have come to love already, that would probably be the best thing to do. I don't think that more options is always better. I believe that does come with its own set of issues as well, but I think given the circumstances, allowing players to customize their runs is probably the way to go. Now, don't get me wrong, I understand that being overpowered can be fun. I've played games where my character is just insanely strong. I get the appeal. And if you enjoy that, that is wonderful. I just wanted to talk a little bit about how these things can still present some issues. So, to answer the question in the title, is it a good thing to be overpowered in single player and co-op games? Well, it depends really. It's not a simple answer. It depends on the game, the individual players, the community as a whole, the audience that the game is for, the experience that the game is intended to create. One can argue every video game has an overpowered protagonist, otherwise games wouldn't be beatable. Balancing a video game is very tricky. It's important not just for developers to be aware of that, but also us players. More power doesn't always equal more fun. Less power doesn't always equal less fun. And when somebody expresses that they would like for certain things to change, that doesn't necessarily come from a place of hatred and elitism. It's not always an attempt to look like a hardcore pro gamer. It's just that some players really do find it more fun to have to account for the character or the build's weaknesses, that sort of thing. I'm certainly not trying to ruin anybody's fun here. As I said, I do like the game. But yeah, that's going to do it for this video. It's barely scripted. I just put it together in one day because it seems like we'll get the update in early 2026. And I wanted to talk about the game before that. Once the update arrives, I will work on a proper review for the game. So subscribe if that's something you're interested in. Leave a like and a comment, join the discussion, and I'll see you next time. Take care.